Welcome, everybody, to PinstripeChronicles podcast. I am Tats. I am here with Rob and Donald, and we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And it's been a weird week. There's no news going on. And the only thing that really did happen was Wade got traded, Frazier got cut, and Andujar is in limbo. What was your take on? Did you think that it was the right way to go to trade Wade?
Yes and no. Once again, we're getting rid of all of our speed this offseason so far, so that's why I wouldn't totally agree with it. I think he still had a role considering everybody else that offered his role on the team is gone, but at the same time, he wasn't very good at his role, so I don't think we're going to miss him very much. I just think we need some semblance of athleticism on this team that we now do not have because everyone's gone. So I guess we're still in the infancy of this free agency and off season, so there's still a lot that can happen. But I just think it was overdue. It's just they had opportunities to get rid of him last year, and they kept using him. And then when he finally showed some flashes at the end of the season, now they cut ties with him. So it's just the timing's weird, but I'm not going to miss him. I'll say that much.
Yeah, Cashman's bid to get more contact hitting and get more athletic is taking a circuitous route. It's interesting, they're basically removing all their speed, as Rob's pointed out. I echo all his sentiments right there because we're not going to miss him, and I think that you can find an upgrade to him. Having said that, when we gave him extended playing time, he was valuable, and his speed was valuable, and his defense in many areas was valuable too. Sometimes you need role players.
That's what I always used to joke around, and I used to joke around, and I would say that he was a spring training superstar, and he did have, he offered a lot, even though he didn't always show the ability to be consistent with it. I think is a good way to put it. Like you said, when he was able to fill in, he really was a prototypical bench player. He wasn't an everyday guy. That we know. And as much as we like to have fun with him, and kind of tease him a little bit, he did have that value on the bench where if you needed a little speed at the end of the game, not that Yankees do that anymore, baseball in general, though, but you had a guy that could play third, short, second, they used him in the outfield a little bit. So he was showing his ability to kind of be that guy that Boom was able to call on to say, all right, we could stick him here. We know he's not going to be, the best at it, but we could survive a game or two if we have to plug him in somewhere. So I think when you have somebody like that on the roster, it is a little more difficult to see that piece now gone, especially when you don't know who's going to take that role.
Well, yeah, who do you think? I think there's anybody internally that the Yankees can use to take that role. I mean, obviously they got rid of Velasquez as well. So, I mean, do you think they'll maybe give Oswaldo Cabrera a run at it?
I think they're leaving the option to say, all right, now we have a chance to get some young blood up. It might be a Cabrera or a Volpe that they plug into that roster, that spot. Because you already got, at the beginning of the year, you got rid of Estrada. So Estrada was somebody similar to Wade, where you can move around the infield or between short and second. So they kind of got rid of a lot of their plug-in pieces that can give some of the guys that are more injury prone those days off. So I'm nervous to see where Cashman's going with these moves.
You could find a player like that in free agency, though. There's probably a litany of Tyler Wade types, guys that can run, play multiple positions. I mean, we had one in Locastro, let him go.
Yeah.
We let everybody go that can do what Tyler Wade does. So, I mean, I'm sure there's someone in the minor league system they're going to use for that. I would not use any of our big shortstop infield prospects in that role. Volpe, no, absolutely not. Cabrera, not even him. Unless they're playing like 4 or 5 times a week, you don't call them up for a bench role. Cabrera's got a lot of potential. We know Volpe's got potential. Same thing with Peraza. Let them get their time in the minors. Let them be ready. And when you do call them up, keep them up and make them play every day, or allow them to play every day, not make them do anything. But you know what I mean. You don't want to use a prospect as a role player, because Tyler Wade was at one point one of our top prospects, like top 15 or something like that. And look what he turned out to be. They can't allow it to happen with a guy like Cabrera, who's got a lot of potential, switch hitter, plays all his positions. He could take that role. I would rather them use him as a stop, not even a stopgap, but start him. If you're going to call up Cabrera, he's got to start. I don't want him off the bench sitting there. He might as well be in the minor leagues if that's the case.
Yeah, and also with Wade, one thing that I do appreciate is, even though for 9 years he didn't have an everyday role on the team, on the major league roster, he never, he was very good with the press, very good with the fans. He never complained. He did his job the way that they wanted him to do it. You didn't hear him complaining about playing time, or I'm going, up and down, which is something I do appreciate with a player, because you don't see that a lot. Sometimes they get that ego. Well, Wade seemed like he was pretty grounded. He knew that he wasn't an everyday player. I think he did realize that. And on the other side of the coin, you had a guy like Frazier that ended up just getting, they just cut him. They didn't even trade him. They at least got the decency to find Wade a home to go to. And, well, I'm curious to see who that player is that's coming back from the Angels. But with Frazier, he was just, he was a pain in the ass on social media at times. I don't think he handled the press very well. He didn't handle the pressure very well, especially with, some of, was it the best outfielder?
Oh, no.
And the Yankees didn't help themselves. Well, the Yankees didn't help themselves when they says, all right, you're going to be our starting left fielder, and then 8 games later, he's on the bench. So,
1,000,000%.
So it's not all Frazier's fault, but you have to remember that as the player, you're the one that's in the spotlight. You have to watch your time.
Yeah, but with Frazier, they didn't help him out, like you said. Like, when they got him, he was actually ranked higher than Aaron Judge on our prospect list. He was like our number 2 guy, right behind Torres. When he got called up, he showed immediate signs of being a valuable, really valuable piece to our future, and they sent him down. Same thing a year later. Called him up. Hey, this guy looks pretty good. Maybe they should send him down. And then it just kept on happening, and then he finally, when they gave him that shot, because out of necessity in 2020, he played really well, and I don't think they used him in the playoffs, actually. Then they gave him the shot this year, and then, like you said, 8 games later, and something Evans brought up numerous times, how quickly. Snap of a finger, hey, you're struggling, get him out. Yeah. But nobody else, they didn't do it. They didn't do that to anybody else. Like Aaron Hicks, if he, they played him until he got hurt, and he was terrible. They didn't bench him, so they didn't treat Frazier right, along with, the talk about him having vertigo and the past concussion issues. You don't know if he's going to be able to play again, and I really hope that's not the case. So teams are probably really, holding back on, like, do we trade anything, even if it's cash considerations? Do we give the Yankees anything for this player that might not ever be able to play again? And if he does, he might not be able to play at a decent enough level to what his potential is. So it's tough to say, but Frazier might just have to take a year, maybe more, off until he's 100%, and then he can sign on elsewhere. I think the Yankees had to cut ties with him because they just don't know if he's going to play.
No, if you look at it here, if you look at it here and now, yes, he had to be released because he has zero value. But the reason why he has zero value has a lot to do with the way the Yankees handled him. As Rob's pointed out, when we first traded for him, whenever he got some playing time, he was hitting. He was raking. He was hitting doubles. he was doing the kind of things that the Yankees for years needed. And because his face didn't fit, his face just basically didn't fit. I don't think his face fit with Cashman and the way that the organization likes to do things. And I think it's a case where, as Rob pointed out, other guys with lesser ability got more than enough opportunities. Yeah. And Aaron Hicks is one of them. I know Aaron Hicks is obviously center fielder. Frazier's not, but Hicks is not a good player. I've never liked Hicks, but Frazier, who we traded an excellent reliever for, one of the best relievers we've ever had, and we never gave him the opportunity that you should have given him, considering we traded such a valuable piece that could have helped us in the future. Miller was sensational. So the Frazier situation is difficult. On one hand, I look at the fact that he was an adventure in the outfield. Like, he'd throw himself everywhere, and like his fundamentals of the outfield was ridiculous often. You can't rely on that. I don't know how he managed to get a Gold Glove nominee, and Aaron Judge never has. I mean, that's just a farce. But I can't even get into that. It was crazy, considering he's just not a good outfielder. So you can't have that. You can't rely on that. Yes, and you can't rely on the fact that his personality was a little weird. But again, the Yankees are very old school. You know, they're very much like the Maras and the Giants. Yeah. If your face doesn't exactly fit, then you're just not going to be given the opportunities that you deserve. And I think that speaks to the organization more than anything. I think he should have been given an opportunity when we first arrived. There was so many times where he was like, when I was begging them to keep him, and then they'd always send him back down to AAA. And it affected his mentality. It affected him. And so when we fast forward to last season, the first 8 games, he knew he was playing for his job, and I think it affected him. And I don't know whether maybe the vertigo or the concussion issues, I don't know, because it sounds like he's had this on and off for a while now. But certainly for the first 8 games, I think he was pressing, because he knew that every out, he was going to be replaced by Brett Gardner. It was only a matter of time. And that was just the way it's always been. I think the Yankees were wrong not to trade him last season. That was when they had the trade value up. He was the Gold Glove nominee. He played really well. If the Yankees didn't fully trust him, which we know they never have, that's when you take an opportunity to trade him. But they didn't. And now he has 0 value. He's been released. It's a sad story on both sides. Frazier's a good guy. He's a little weird. He's a little, ex-gen social media dude, but that's fine. Not everyone has to be buttoned up Yankee. You know what I mean? But the Yankees have never really had his face fit. It was always going to be Brett Gardner, always going to be Aaron Hicks. And that's just the way it's always been with Brian Cashman and the organization.
Now, where do we see the other guy that we mentioned in the beginning was Andujar? Where do you see his future on this team, or is he just somebody that they just haven't found the right spot to trade him to yet?
I think he's going to get non-tendered when that deadline comes, or they're going to try to just include him in a trade. He could be like that Tyro Estrada type that you get for. He could have a very similar trade that we just got for Tyler Wade, cash considerations or player to be named later. He doesn't have value, and it's not his fault. He just technically he's got hurt, but you really can't blame. It's not like he's hitting his head against the wall and saying, "I can't play now." So he showed it that first year. He was fantastic, and then injuries just hurt his progression. And the Yankees also hurt his progression. They couldn't find a place for him. They tried him out in left field despite not being very good. They tried him out in the right field as well. I always thought first base would have been a better spot for him anyway. But again, when Gio took the job, there was really nowhere for Andujar to play. Yeah. And even this year, he was still hitting. He got hurt again, though. So it's just that's what it's been, the injury. So maybe you include him in a deal with a guy like Voit just to get whatever you can and just unload their salaries, or he's going to get non-tendered. He doesn't really have a spot on this team because outside of a decent bat, it's not like he runs incredibly well. He doesn't play defense really well at all anywhere. So he's probably a DH, and he's still young. So a team in the National League, assuming we get that DH, they could see him and be like, all right, well, we can use that bat. I feel like Pittsburgh, Colorado, some of those teams that just are looking for an extra bat, that's probably where he's going to get sent to. And it sucks. He's another player like Frazier that had a lot of potential, that injuries and other things have kind of stunted that progression.
Yeah, I mean, when you watched his rookie year, we thought that we had something really special brewing. You know, we knew that the defense was subpar, but it wasn't to that point where you felt like he can't be helped. You know, there was still room for him to grow and develop as a third baseman. Unfortunately, with the injuries and the stellar third base play by Urshela, it was a very, you didn't even think about it. You know, like, well, why aren't you putting Andujar back in? That wasn't even an option. You know, there were fans of his that wanted to see him back at third. I get it. But it wasn't going to work out because you're not going to take away the third base defense like Urshela just for a subpar defensive guy with a little pop in the bat. It's not a formula that works. At third base has to be a more defensive position.
I find it curious that Andujar wasn't non-tendered before the Tyler Wade trade, because Tyler Wade plays positions and has speed and can give you a pinch run possibility, late in games, maybe a defensive replacement possibility late in games. And Andujar provides none of that. He's a zero position player who's just basically a DH at this stage, an injury prone DH at that. I find it curious that when we initially needed to clear room on the 40 man, that he wasn't the first guy to be non-tendered, then we maybe kept a hold of Tyler Wade just to see, maybe take it up to spring training and see, how he is. And if the Yankees find a better option through free agency, then find a way to trade him. I would have taken that route personally. I don't think there should have been any race to get rid of Tyler Wade. I don't think he was necessarily a huge priority to get off this roster. I would have non-tendered Andujar first, but I'm wondering, because of the fact that he was in his rookie year so good, and he should have been rookie of the year, and he was so good, that maybe Brian Cashman's hoping that he still has a little bit more value, and by keeping him on the roster a little while, you might have time to find a trade for him, which is a little bit more than just a PTA,
Yeah, I think the Wade was moved. I really believe it was because of, he was with the Yankees for so long. He was a good soldier, for Cashman. He didn't cause any waves. They're like, look, all right, we're going to make sure that we find you somewhere to go. We're not just going to throw you out into free agency. We'll find you a home. And I really do think that. I think with Frazier, there was no trade value because of his medical history. Now, I think that was the sole purpose.
Yeah,
because nobody's going to take that liability, especially with his vertigo and then the concussion symptoms that that come and go. I think nobody wanted to kind of take that, give up anything for that. And I think Andujar, I think it's one of those, even if I don't think they can hold on to, they can, well, I guess they could re-sign them, but until we know what's going on with the CBA and the DH going into the National League, Andujar's got nowhere to go either.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm kind of wondering if they should have for this year with the CBA, should they have extended the deadlines until there was an agreement?
Yeah, I mean, we just don't know with this. The CBA could be done in a heartbeat. We don't even know about it. All the signs point to it taking months, but I'm surprised that really anything has happened at this point in free agency, that any teams are making moves, because there's just so much uncertainty. I would not be surprised if the season gets delayed because of these talks. It's going to be that ugly. Theoretically, everything should have been pushed back. You know, and this should have been the first order of business was let's get this done, and then we can focus on, you know, free agency, winter meetings, GM meetings, and all that stuff. But you thought there was going to be some sort of like a quick frenzy of moves, and we haven't really seen, aside from some of the injured players like Verlander and Syndergaard. Just let me make sure I get my money.
Yeah.
And Mats has just gotten signed, and somehow Andrew Heaney got $8 million. So players are getting their money.
Even Mats is getting his money.
Yeah. So,
This thing, Heaney actually is getting paid more this year than Mats. That's pretty sad.
Much to Steve Cohen's chagrin. And did you guys? This was genius. Did you guys see Steve Cohen's tweet?
He's a delight on Twitter.
Couldn't have happened to a better team.
That is everybody's Valentine's Thanksgiving Day present right there. You know, just before you tuck into your turkeys, have a look at Twitter and look at Steve Cohen's tweet here, Yankee fans. I'm not happy this morning. I've never seen such unprofessional behavior exhibited by a player's agent. I guess words and promises just don't matter.
No, they don't.
What a big baby. What a big baby. And what's also brilliant is he screwed all future negotiations with any future agents. And
they're just going to look at him.
They're just going to look at that tweet and go, "Oh my God, this guy's got problems." I mean, this guy is a billionaire who's had some dodgy dealings in the past, some dodgy stock market stuff in the past. This guy ain't no saint, and he's crying about agents trying to get a little bit more money for his players and maybe not, you know, following the exact protocol with returning a phone call back to the Mets. The player didn't want to go back to the Mets. That's as simple as that. Sorry. Not a lot of players want to sign for the Mets because they're not a very good organization right now. I know that Alderson blamed it on New York. It's nothing to do with New York. It's because of Steve Cohen. That's why no GMs wanted to sign. Epler's the only one, but that's because he was an ex-Yankee. That's because he lived in New York. He liked New York. He lived in Brooklyn. So I think he'll like New York. I think he'll sign happy with the Mets. But nobody else wanted to go back to the Mets because the Mets are broken. They're an absolute mess, and they're run by Steve Cohen. And he's doing these crazy Twitter stuff, and it's laughable. I thought that was a fake tweet. I thought that was the New York porch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think that was the New York Post. I thought it was the New York porch. And then when I read his tweet, I was like, there's no way that is anybody else than somebody that's a fake account. How could that be a real account? How could that be a real person? It's embarrassing.
He talks about professionalism, right? He talks about professionalism, but this is a guy that's on Twitter constantly. Last year, wasn't he saying, "Hey, I'm not watching the game right now. I'm at dinner. What's going on?" Like some stupid stuff like that. He's like, "Oh, I wish we can go back to the days where the black jerseys were the only controversy." Like he's talking about professionalism, but he's an idiot. I mean, I'm so happy he's the Mets owner because as bad as things can be for us right now, the Mets will always be the Mets. Look at what they're going through right now. They just signed a bad GM. Let's be honest.
They didn't even have a GM at the GM meeting.
Exactly.
You know?
And now they got one whose biggest move was, or his time with the Angels, didn't sign a single pitcher that helped them. Instead, he unloaded all of his money into offense when they didn't really need it. The only pitcher they got that's helped him is Ohtani, and that's because he's a different breed, literally, because nobody else does what he does in the league. So, God, I'm
the other thing is the Mets still don't even have a manager.
I know.
Who's going to want to sign for a team where they don't even know who's going to be calling the shots?
You got a guy that's crying on Twitter. You can copy and paste this tweet and to a 16-year-old boy's account who asks a girl out and she goes, maybe, and then cancels in the last minute because she's saying that she has to get a haircut. You know what I mean? Or she has to wash her hair. You know what I mean? And then he tweets later going, I'm very unhappy. I've never seen such unprofessional behavior. Words don't matter. It's very same. It's exactly the same thing. It's like, what are you doing? You big baby.
What's 16-year-old's gonna? He's gonna say a lot worse than that. He ain't gonna call him.
But it's such a big baby attitude. Like,
it is. Yeah, it's a very big baby attitude. I just every time his face pops up on Twitter, I go, what do you do now? Because he's trending constantly for dumb reasons too. He's And has there been anything he's done that's really good? He brought in Lindor and signed him, but Mets fans hated Lindor for a good chunk of the season. So what has he really done? He's going to bring back.
And the contract is terrible. It's way over inflated, way overvalued.
No, they overpaid.
For a player.
And that's and now you have Correa going, I want more money than he got.
He deserves it. Correa deserves that.
Yeah.
He deserves
who's going to pay it? Nobody.
As long as it's not the Yankees after that, what he said about Derek Jeter, screw him. At least Thor wants to take him out because of what he said about Jeter. That was awesome.
And Jeter's response was just pure class.
Gold.
I could listen to that on loop.
I know. That was the classic competitive Derek Jeter. He's still very competitive to this day. Derek Jeter was looking at like going, I could take this several ways, but I'm just not gonna do it. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like, yeah, I heard about that. He was a very cool, classy Derek Jeter, but he's still a badass Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
And Correa can go screw after what he said. That's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing.
So we've all been doing this podcast for over a year now, and we've had a lot of fun moments. We've had frustrating moments, but what if you had to pick one moment that you could say this is something that could be, you could watch over and over again and still laugh the same way? What would that moment have been?
Just one? Oh.
You could listen to all of my trivia responses. That's a whole...
Yeah.
I mean, there was the time where you got a question right, and you were like riding a high horse on it, and you couldn't get you were like, this is going to be the name of the episode, and you couldn't say your own title correctly. And then Evan immediately, as he always does, just cuts you off and goes, yeah, keep thinking about that and it'll get better. And it just caused me to like break down in tears crying on camera. And I don't know, that might have been the most I've laughed, but favorite moment has to be Wade Boggs, right? Like to me, that was like the original trivia botch.
Yeah, well, that was basically your go-to answer, man. Even if it was like whatever it was, man, it did not matter. Wade Boggs.
I was like, even when we had the Talking Rivals, even when we had the Talking Rivals on, I'm like, Wade Boggs, And we all got the inside joke, and they didn't, which I kind of felt bad for, but we explained it to him after the show. But it was.
Yeah, I think the Colonel Custard episode.
That was
that had Rob crying. What's the context for our viewers?
What the hell was the context?
What was the context? We were very of such unprofessionalism by the Pinstripe Chronicles guy. Go tell him, Steve Cohen. We don't even remember the context of the whole video. What Clue got brought up for whatever reason. I don't know why.
That's
Right.
Or is that when I had the question of the day, one of Evan's favorite pies or something like that? There was something with either the board games or pie. We're part of the end of part of the discussion.
I think the pie was a different episode. That was the Mississippi mud pie fiasco.
That's right.
Yeah, that took a turn.
That
took a turn. There's
another classic was more of an off camera. All right. And that was when we were all getting set up. I hadn't clicked record yet. And Donald, you turned around, and for about 5 minutes, all we saw was your ass on the screen. And we just couldn't get your attention to turn around, and we were just dying. It's like, this is not what we wanted to see this morning. I mean, we could name about an hour's worth of them just from what I've done. I am the king of the goof up, and what was it? 3 days in a row, I introduced myself as Evan.
Oh, that was great. That was great.
And it wasn't until we had Ron Blomberg on that I finally nailed an episode as a host. And that was the only
And
one.
then that was the only one. And then you deteriorated spectacularly for a couple of weeks after that, where you go. It was like you were.
When Tats froze on screen, it was just his smiling bald head.
That's right.
5 minutes.
That's a good one too.
Like
That might be the one. That might be the one. I just remembered that now. I was like, why am I forgetting something? And it was that. That's my pick right there.
I mean, we all had our little things. Like, for instance, I would go on these crazy Aaron Boone rants that were awesome. I'd be throwing things and stuff. I hated Aaron Boone for the entire season. Tats, your thing was definitely trivia. That was that. I mean, we could do an episode of just Tats answers that were just genius.
No, the other one was when we pre-planned the question of the day around the candy bar, and Evan lost his mind.
Just to get Evan mad.
So I would try to come up with the stupidest questions, depending on if the Yankees won or lost. You know, there was a method to it. You know, if I needed to lighten the mood, because when Evan's in a bad mood, he's in a bad mood. There's no bringing him back. You know,
well, that's every day. When's he in a good mood? When is he in a good mood?
Wakes up.
I wish he was on with us today, but I do want to say it's been, you know, with it being Thanksgiving, I'm very thankful that we all became friends the way we have, and we were able to do this just about every day. And all the subscribers that we've gained, and people that have been tuning in to watch us on Sport and Area, and the ones that have been tuning in to listen, we are very appreciative of you, and we do hope you enjoy your holiday today.
Well, that's right. I mean, listen, we started off in the previous alias, and we were, you know, raw, and we were just kind of throwing it together, and then people stuck with us, and you know, now we're gaining a lot of subscribers. We've got Sport and Area, and we've got a lot of exciting things happening in the near future with us, a lot of exciting interviews and all kinds of great things. And most importantly, we've had loyal viewers that like to tune in, and we've obviously just been the four of us, just great friends. I love all you guys. It's just an absolute blast every day to talk Yankees, just to talk whatever, and just hang out. It's been amazing.
I'd be wrong to leave out Lynn and Chris, who are also a very key
100%.
part to getting these shows going.
Yep.
We appreciate them as well.
Big shout out to Lynn and Chris.
Absolutely.
And, that is going to wrap things up for our Thanksgiving episode. Do hope that everybody does enjoy their day. Stay safe. If you're having a drink, don't drive. Call a cab. Call a friend. Call Uber. All right, stay off the roads if you've had a drink. Very important. So just remember.
That's your safety message from the PinstripeChronicles.
That's my safety message. Yes, don't drink and drive. It ain't worth it. All right. So just remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check out our social medias in the description. Wear your pinstripes for pride and play hard.
Happy Thanksgiving, people.